Hey everybody, and welcome to Slowpoke Racing and to the Ultimate Racing League. This is one of our Sunday Championship races. We're with the Pro Split 2. I wish they would really sort those names out. Pro Split 2 League, which is the second one down from the top, I believe. So we're all very quick guys. Well, they're all quick guys in Ultimate Racing League anyway. But these are getting very near the top of the pile. So yeah, we're with the Pro Split 2. I've had to write it down because I'm literally covering that minute. We are over in Italy, in Sardegna. A little bit more about that in a second. First of all, I just want to say a big thank you and welcome to our new sponsors. I mentioned them last week. It's Prop Up and Co. I think I said Prop Up and Go, so I do apologise for that. It's Prop Up and Co. Looking forward to working with you this season. I also want to say a couple of quick thank yous. I'm not sure if I did it last week, but I want to say thank you to Nath for saving and sharing the replays. He does them straight after the races, which means that I can bring these to you this morning. So massive thanks to Nath. And also somebody else that gets overlooked quite a bit, actually, and that's Silly Shot. He does all the points for us for all of the leagues, actually, I believe. And that is Sundays, Saturdays, Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Mondays. He covers all of them, so I believe he does anyway. So a massive thanks to Silly Shot, because, again, without him putting that kind of effort in, then we wouldn't have any league tables, and it wouldn't be worth doing, would it? So, yeah, massive thank you to those guys. So, on to this race then. Now, as I've already mentioned, we're over in Italy at Sardegna, and we're on track A. Now, lots of layouts for this track, as you all probably know and are aware, but this is track A. They're probably the most popular. It is a fictional track. It's just over 3 miles long with 15 turns. Now, because it's fictional, there are no corner names, so I've made up my own, which we might mention as we go along. I think I made these up 1 or 2 seasons ago, so we shall see what you think. So on to this race then. So I will, again, I didn't do it last week. I'm just going to mention the rules from how I understand them. And they seem to change weekly as well, so forgive me if I say anything wrong. But we have 2 races. As you can see 15 laps. I believe they're both 15 laps. The first race is an out-and-out sprint race. Soft tyres to be used only. You could use hards if you want, but you have to use softs at some point. Race 2 is another sprint race, but there is a pit stop. Mediums and hard tyres have to be used for a minimum of 2 laps. Again, if you want to go on to if you want to go on to soft tyres or wet tyres or anything of the sort, I believe you can, but you have to use mediums and hards. Oh, hang on a minute. No, I'm wrong. You have to use mediums and hards only. You cannot use softs or wet unless it rains. Not that it ever does in Sardinia. So there we go. Race 2, it is mediums and hards only. Race 1 is softs only. Should be okay fuel-wise for race 1, although these Jags do like to drink the juice down a little bit. So we'll see how they get on. It'll be more relevant in race 2. Anyway, let's crack onward, shall we, with this race then. So as I say, race 1. So after 10 minutes of qualifying, excuse me, let's have a look down the grid and see where everybody's put themselves, shall we? So Dan has put himself on pole now. He had a fantastic round last week. I believe he came second in race 1, and I'm sure he won race 2. Silly me, didn't write it all down, so I'm starting all that this week. But from memory serves, I believe Dan actually won race 2. So he's having a fantastic start to the season, and he's put himself in pole position for this race as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how Dan gets on. Looking to improve and get himself a couple of first places this round. Just behind him is Nath in the Samurai Jaguar. And again, thank you to Nath for sharing the replays. Very appreciated. In third on the grid, we've got Stubbs. Now, I believe that Stubbs also made it to the podium last week. Forgive me if it's wrong because I'm just trying to work from memory here. Gower in fourth. Silly Shot, as I've mentioned, for doing all the points. Thank you very much to him. He's got himself fifth on the grid. Grasshopper. Apologies to Grasshopper. I think I called him Grahamid last week. And I don't know why. I think it's good they had similar cars for a race that I was covering with Grahamid in it. And he got a very similar car. So I really am sorry, Dan, Grasshopper. you're there on 6. Mika is 7th in that bright orange Jaguar. Yeah, I can't even pronounce it. Is it Jager? Oh, is it the Jagermeister thing? I don't know. Paul is in 8th. Fellow commentator is Paul, and stock delivery on that one. So unfortunately, the delivery's not come through for Paul. Paul has got his own YouTube channel. I suggest you go and check it out. It is, well, pretty much his name, actually, Paul_E_72 Racing Channel. Does some fantastic comms, does Paul, and I'm hoping he's going to be joining me, actually, to cover the Pro-Am 2 races we're going to be doing later on. So that's Paul in 8th. So, yeah, head over to his YouTube channel. It is a fantastic watch. Really does know his stuff, does Paul. And you can see, I can't remember what he actually covers. Oh, I do. Yes, it's my race. It's the AM2 guys. So we're down there in the bottom league in AM2, and Paul covers that one. But there is some fantastic racing to be had, I've got to say. 9th on the grid is a P White in the Nesquik chocolate brown. I'll call it chocolate brown. Chuck is 10th. Then we've got Harry Poppins. Well, you're not going to miss him, are you? Harry Poppins in 11th. Traditionally, every time I've covered Harry Poppins, he never really qualifies very well, but does get up there in amongst the leaders later on in the race. So keep an eye on Harry Poppins. Not that you'll be able to miss him in that, well, multicoloured bright Jaguar. In 12th, we've got Dizzy, another one with the stock livery and not coming through. So hopefully the liveries will sort themselves out for a little bit later on. Bloomfield is in 13 with Brian Moncarney down in 14th. Not used to seeing this, are we, from Brian Moncarney? I think he started somewhere near the back last week as well. So Brian having some issues at the minute. Maybe he's not quite used to the Jag yet. Maybe he needs to take them eyelashes and lipstick off it. I'm not sure. But Brian down there in 14th. So back up to the top then. Let's get the normal view on and we'll get race 1 underway, shall we? I've got my track map ready. As I say, I've had to make up some corner names for this one. Now down towards turn 1, and this is a bit of a tricky one where we're going to have a look, especially with the grid starts. Well, everybody through there nice and cleanly. Yeah, fantastic stuff from these boys. And Nath has actually got the drop on Dan and moved up into first position. So Dan not going to be happy about that one as they go into this couple of S sections. I've called it Wayne's Chicane at turns 4 and 5 as we head down towards turn 6 at Enzo Corner. It is Nath leading from Dan. Then we have Stubbs in 3rd, Gowry's 4th, Silly Shot, Grasshopper, Paul, B White, Bloomfield, Mika, Chuck, Harry Poppins, Dizzy and Brian still down there in 14th. So everybody lining up very nicely. Let's have a look. We've got something going on here where Grasshopper is actually looking to make a move on a Silly Shot. Now Grasshopper's going to go on the outside as we come down towards this very tricky corner. We call it Firepower Frenzy. This is a very tight left-hander, very tricky turn, but we got that one done, and Silly Shot drops behind Grasshopper there after that move from Grasshopper. So Grasshopper up to 5th now, and his next victim is going to be Gower, unless Gower gets a bit of a move on. But Silly Shot looks like he wants to get that place back again as we go around the final corner. We call this Harry's Highlight. It's not quite the final corner. There is another corner to come, turn 15, but it is more a bend in the road than anything else. Let's jump on board with Silly Shot, shall we? He's just gone through turn 15. As we head down towards the start-finish line, across the line start lap 2 then. And what speeds are we reaching here? 162 miles an hour as we come down into the braking zone. Hard on those brakes. Down through the gears into first gear around turn 1. A quick look behind us, and we have got Paul all over the back of us here. So Silly Shot really has got to be careful. Is he going to do some defending, or is Paul going to have a sniff up the inside? No, don't fancy it here. Not at this little chicane section at turns 4 and 5. Grasshopper getting a good exit out of there. As I say, he's chasing Gower down. Another quick look behind us, and Silly Shot really is coming under a lot of pressure from Paul as we come into turn 6 at Enzo Corner. Trying to get the power down as early as you can, but you don't want to push too quickly, otherwise you're going to end up in barriers, kissing barrier there on the right hand side. Pretty quick track this one. It is you are quite flat out for most of it. Let's get out of Silly Shot's car, leave him alone. Let's have a look and see what's happening a little bit further down as P. White comes under a bit of attention from Chuck as we get down towards turn 9 at Firepower Frenzy. Then he's through these few little turns here at turns 10, 11 and 12. And number 13 as well, turn 13, this one just about to go through now. Again, another tricky turn because as you can see, there's a lot of grass out there on the right hand side. If you get on the power just that little bit too early, you can end up over there and the car will spin, as it often does. It looks like Chuck there was making a bit of a move on P. White, but has ended up sitting behind him with Mika in 11th. Harry Poppins still in 12th. Let's have a look at Harry Poppins as we turn around time 15 onto the start-finish straight to finish off lap 2. Trying to get into the slipstream of Mika in front. Now, we've mentioned this time and time again. The slipstream in this is absolutely rubbish. It really doesn't kick in until, well, I would say the last sort of 20 or 30 metres. By then it's too late. You're into the corner, into the braking zone. So I think you can adjust it. You can put the slipstream on strong, but it kind of defeats the object. We like to set it to real. Want to keep the racing as real as we can. But there we go, that's my little moan and rant about the slipstream. And as Harry Poppins goes alongside Mika as they come up towards turn 6, both giving each other plenty of room. Harry Poppins couldn't quite get that job done there on the inside as Mika had the momentum, had the racing line and pushed on through to stay in 11th. We're just going to go up to our race leader and see what's happening up at the front. And it is still Nath doing a fantastic job at the minute. Excuse me, for holding up Dan and Stubbs in 3rd. Stubbs just sitting there in Dan's slipstream as they go through. Where are we going through? I'm completely lost where we are now. We are just coming up to the final turn at Harry's Highlight as Nath goes round. Again, another tricky turn. This one is very easy to spin here. I know, I'm talking from experience. It is a very tight turn. You're very keen to get that power down, and the back end does like to come around on you on that turn, but these boys make it look very easy. Don't get many penalties on this track. It is quite a forgiven track, so we shouldn't see too many penalties being handed out today. What we are seeing though is Nath doing a fantastic job of keeping Dan behind him. Stubbs in 3rd, Gower in 4th. This is a better show from Gower. I think Gower was promoted last season. Very, very quick guy, absolutely dominated, I believe, in the league he was in last season, the Pro-Am 1, I believe it was. Yeah, looking for Gower to carry on with that pretty much, as a couple of guys just behind it was Paul and Silly Shot, I believe, getting onto the grass and kicking up a bit of dirt. Now it's side by side into turn 6. Giving each other plenty of racing room, and it is still Paul and Silly Shot. We're going to stay with these two as they go side by side through Frowney's Fast Lane. That's not its official title, it's just what I've called it, Frowney's Fast Lane. And that takes us up through turns 7 and 8 and then down towards Firepower Frenzy or Crash Corner, whichever way you're looking at it. Fantastic stuff from Paul and Silly Shot. They are still side by side. Paul has just about got the edge there as we came around turn 13 into Harry's Highlight at turn 14 is where we're heading now, and he's still Paul just ahead of Silly Shot. Silly Shot isn't going to give this one up very easy though as they enter into the braking zone. Back on the power as quickly as they possibly dare, trying to keep that back end of that Jag in check. And now Silly Shot is into the slipstream of Paul. We're just going to stick with these two just until we get down towards turn 1. I just want to see if Silly Shot can get just a little bit closer to Paul using that slipstream, which I've already said is rubbish, so we're not going to keep going on about that. Silly Shot, is he going to have a look at the inside? Oh no, I think he thought about it, didn't he? Yes, it was a bit of a late one. I think that was more of a case of not running into the back of Paul, as Paul goes very wide and gets onto the kitty litter, which has slowed him right down. That has enabled Silly Shot to get alongside him. Now Silly Shot has got the inside line, always giving it up, and he's dropped in behind Paul as they get into turn 4 and 5. It is still Paul from Silly Shot. Fantastic stuff from these two. We will come back. I'm just going to drop down and have a look, see what's happening as P. White has a bit of a scrape with the barrier but gets away with it. Chuck in 8th. He's loving this with these two guys in front of him battling away. It's enabled him to catch up, so Chuck is going to be having a bit of a sniff around the rear end of Silly Shot's Jag in the next few turns actually. As long as Paul and Silly Shot keep this battle up, then Chucky's going to be creeping up to the back of them and looking at making a move. He just waits for one of them to run into the other. Just behind him we've got Mika in 9th. These guys are all pretty close together, aren't they? Then we've got P. White in 10th. Harry Poppins in 11th, Dizzy in 12th, Brian Moncani has made his way up into 13th, so Bloomfield all the way at the back, so Bloomfield's obviously had a bit of an issue somewhere and has dropped him down to 14th, just having a look. There's no damage, but if he picked any up it may have sorted itself out, so poor old Bloomfield. Sorry we missed that one, but I'm sure he won't be sorry. Down in 14th, and we're only on lap 5, so still plenty of time for Bloomfield to catch up. Back up to the top then, our race leader, Nath, is still out in front. It is Dan and Stubbs just behind him as they were after turn 1. Great start from Nath and has led all the way. Gower still in 4th. Then we've got Grasshopper. Then a bit of a gap opening up. Well, there's a gap between Gower and Grasshopper, so Grasshopper in a bit of no man's land at the minute because he's got just as much of a gap behind him to Paul, but Paul is busy at the minute with Silly Shot. These two still going at it, and Paul at the minute just got the advantage of keeping his nose in front as they come up towards turn 6 at Enzo corner, and around they go again. Chucky's still there. Chucky's still sniffing around at the back there, just waiting for a mistake from either of those two guys. Now, because everybody is in the same car, same power, etc., then there is no advantage to be gained just from the car you're driving, which is why the guys, when they get a bit of a gap between them, that tends to stay. Where you make your time up is how you take the corners, where you brake, etc. So it really is down to the driver skill, and well, all these guys are very skillful drivers, as they are proving. It is so difficult to make a move on each other, and gaps, well, they tend to stay gaps. It is only the slightest of mistakes and it costs you. So Chuck there just hanging around, just waiting for Silly Shot and Paul to start battling again so he can creep up behind them, or he's looking for a mistake. Mika, we've not really had a look at Mika, have we? We'll follow Mika for a bit. In fact, let's jump on board with Mika, shall we? So we'll get Mika to take us for a lap, shall we? We'll do it that way. We do like to do a lap. So across the start-finish then line, down towards turn 1, into the braking zone at around the 75-metre mark. Tight left-hander, back on the power as early as you can. Then through turns 2 and 3, and then up towards Wayne's corner. This one named after Wayne G. At turns 4, then into turn 5, a right-hander, then it power back down again, heading towards, we used to call it Church Corner for obvious reasons, but we're now calling it Enzo's Corner. Dab of the brakes, just being very careful with that throttle, then back on the power again, so up through turn 7, more of a sweeping bend under the arch, the Gran Turismo arch. Then we go up through Frowney's fast lane. It is foot to the floor all the way through this section, through turn 8. Then we start on down the hill into the braking zone again at Firepower Frenzy, a very tight left-hander trying to avoid that wall on the left. You see Mika just about having a scrape with it. Then we've got a series of turns here, only little kinks in the road. It's turns 10 and 11. This is Vodka Rob Run, named after one of our racers and one of our regular viewers as well, actually. Then through turn 13, a very fast left-hander down towards Harry's highlight at turn 14, again avoiding that wall on the left, otherwise it will spin you out. Back on the power again, quick look behind to see where P. White is, and we're comfortable at the minute. Through the final turn then at turn 15, and then we've got a 700-metre run all the way down. It's at 0.43 of a mile across the start-finish line down towards turn 1 at Pete's Plunge, we call turn 1. I didn't mention that before, it's Pete's Plunge, and then we're into turn 3, which is the Rooster Run. So thank you to Mika for taking us on a lap around Sardegna A. Then we've got P. White in 10th. There's not a lot happening with these guys at the minute. They are spread out, and as I say, it's because the cars are so evenly matched. Dizzy in 11th. He's having a bit of a fight with Harry Poppins. Harry Poppins doing absolutely everything he can to get by Dizzy, but as I say, there's not a lot of room on this track. A couple of overtaking places, obviously the start-finish straight. is going to be one of them. And as we come up through Frowney's fast lane, which the guys are just about to hit now, that's another good opportunity for overtaking if you can get close enough. But as you can see, unfortunately at the minute, Harry Poppins isn't close enough. We'll jump on board and we'll do it that way, so you can see his, well, you just about see his feet working there as he's getting onto the brakes. Left foot braking, obviously. Heel to toe and all that nonsense, as we don't need to do any clutch control with these cars, as it's all fluffy paddles, as you can see there, just behind the steering wheel. But making it look nice and smooth is Harry Poppins as we go through turn 13, down towards turn 14, named after himself, Harry's highlight. And then back on the power again, keeping the back end in check. So Harry Poppins still trying to get close enough to Dizzy to make a move on him. We are just about to finish lap 8 of 15. Tyres looking good, fuel is looking good, so shouldn't be any pit stops for any of the guys unless anybody's left the fuel cap open and has been spilling fuel all over the track. Brian Moncani in 13th, not really getting through this grid, is he, as much as we've seen him do in the past. As I say, maybe he doesn't quite like this car at the minute. And then poor old Bloomfield, after whatever happened to him, found himself down in 14th and he's struggling to catch up. It's just tough to do when you're racing in this kind of league with this standard of driving. And if the guys don't make a mistake, then they just cannot get by. But Nath doing a fantastic job out there in front. Oh, now then we've got a bit of a battle on our hands as Stubbs decides to go for it. He's putting the moves on Dan Dan just about keeping his nose in front, but Stubbs fancied his chances there, and he's just letting Dan know that he's there and he is ready to pounce as soon as he makes a mistake. So unlucky for Stubbs, but I think Dan was got a bit twitchy then. He thought Stubbs was going to go for it and take the place off him. Now then Stubbs is absolutely up the rear end of Dan, having a good old look in the boot of that Jag. Now then, we're going to stay with these two to see if Stubbs can get close enough using that slipstream and see if he can make a move as they come down the hill towards Pete's Plunge at turn 1. Excuse me. And it is still Stubbs behind Dan now then, has Dan gone defensive. He's not really, has he? He's sticking to his racing line. Maybe he feels he doesn't need to defend this turn, and well, he's quite right actually. He's just managed to keep that gap just big enough, about a car's length between the two of them, and that gap just big enough to prevent Stubbs making another move. Otherwise it would have been, well, quite a late dive bomb, to be honest. Into turn 4 and 5 at Wayne's chicane. It is still Nath leading from Dan and Stubbs. Now Nath won't mind Dan and Stubbs having a bit of a fight it out, because it will allow him to try and get off up the road a little bit further ahead. But at the minute they're sticking with him. Gower as well, he's creeping up there. He can see them, which will keep him going, give him a good incentive to keep going. So Gower sitting in 4th, just well, again, just hoping that some of the boys in front make a mistake, have a bit of a coming together as they battle it out. But at the minute he's just got a little gap, that half a second or so, to try and make up. The problem is, as they get onto the straight, if he's not in the slipstream of Stubbs' car, then he'll start to lose a little bit of ground on them, because the 3 guys ahead will be slipstreaming each other. Then we've got Grasshopper in 5th. He's got the same problem. He's not in Gower's slipstream, so does lose a very slight bit of ground on the straight. Paul still in 6th, Silly Shot in 7th. These two have calmed down, taking a breather before we go again. Just about to come to the end of lap 10 to start lap 11, so 5 laps to go. Silly Shot in 7th, Jock in 8th. Now a bit closer to Silly Shot actually, so he's in the slipstream, which should pull him in just a bit. I don't think he's going to get close enough to make a move as we come down towards turn 1, but he's certainly going to get a little bit closer, as is Mika in P9. Mika started to push Chuck along, so Chuck, he's going to have one eye on the mirror. He's definitely keeping an eye on Mika anyway, as he tries to push and get a little bit closer to Silly Shot. Into turn 4 and 5 they go. Again, keeping it nice and tight. You can see that little runoff area there on the left, and it is very little as well, but there's plenty of grass. And as I say, no penalties really dished out on this track. But if you do pick up the grass, you're in a bit of trouble for the next turn. Let's have a look, see what's happening a bit further down. P. White in 10th. No man's land at the minute for him. Same for Dizzy in 11th. Harry Poppins in 12th. Not really got into this race, has he, Harry Poppins? As I said at the beginning, never really qualifies very well in the races I've watched him, but he does like to get up there and amongst the leaders later on in the race. There's still plenty of time left. We've got another 4.5 laps to go for Harry Poppins, but it's looking a bit of a big ask actually to improve on 12th at the minute. Brian Moncani in 13th with Bloomfield down in 14th. Has made a bit of a ground up, I think. If you look at the map at the top right, you'll see he's not too far away from Brian Moncani, so he is pushing. So let's have a look, see who's got the fastest lap then. At the minute it is second place Dan Dan with a 140.9. Now if you look at Bloomfield, his fastest is a 41.7, so he's only about a second off the pace of Dan Dan's fastest lap, so Bloomfield is still very quick. It is just, he's had that unfortunate incident that we missed and has dropped him down to 14th. Up to the top there, Nathan, wow, look how steady that is, 141 every single lap. That is fantastic stuff from Nate. That is how you win races. I keep being told this, it is consistency. It is not necessarily getting the fastest lap, it is consistency. Now if Dan Dan can get a 140, and we're going to have a look in a minute at what Dan Dan's laps are, but that is fantastic stuff from Nath. A 141, and you can see it 141, 7, 6, a 7, an 8, 9, 8. So that is absolutely fantastic from Nath. Dan Dan, let's have a look. So in the 41s, again in the 41s, you just got that on lap 10, that 40.9. Well, look at this, it has got him right having a good old sniff of Nath's rear end now. He's having a good look in the boot, isn't he? As we come around turn 13, down towards turn 14. This tight left-hander, this is where it can all go wrong when you're under a bit of pressure, and Stubbs is there as well. There's nothing really separating these three, as who gets the best exit out of turn 14 into turn 15 we go. Now Dan Dan definitely in the slipstream of Nath. Let's jump out of here. We'll go on board with Nath and have a quick look behind. And look at this, as Nath tries to break that slipstream, and Dan Dan's right with him, and Dan Dan isn't going to make a move. Now then, Nath has gone defensive into turn 1. Dan Dan's going to have to go all the way around the outside if he fancies this one. Side by side, and Nath just about holds on to it with Dan Dan, just letting him know he's there, still in second. Stubbs couldn't quite do anything at that turn and sits there in third. Maybe he thought better of it and just thought, now I'll let them two go for it and battle it out, hoping for a mistake from them. But there is really nothing to separate these three guys. Let's jump on board with Stubbs, shall we? This is fantastic stuff. Down towards, not Firepower Friends, this is Enzo's corner at the church, of course it is. A quick look behind us, Gower, well he's there isn't he, but he's not quite challenging Stubbs, so Stubbs can concentrate on what's happening in front of him, and Dan Dan is definitely pushing to try and get the win. He wants to carry on from where he started last week. I think he got a second, I think I said he got a second in race 1, but I'm pretty sure he won race 2. Excuse me, I really have got to clear my throat before we do race 2. So we'll jump out of Stubbs' car then, because I think Dan Dan really is going to put a challenge in on Nath. We're just going to stay with these boys just for the next few laps, next few turns, sorry, because Dan Dan is absolutely desperate to get by. Tyres are all good. Oh, I say that now then. I thought somebody had a bit of a crash then in the background, but they're all fine. We're just going to follow them across the start-finish line down towards turn 1 then. Nath just leading from and Stubbs must have had a very poor exit out of turn 14 because the gap's there, and he's now out of this fight. He really needs to push now as Dan Dan is pushing on Nath. Nath going very defensive again as they come down the hill towards turn 1. Dan Dan having a look around the outside again. I thought he might have gone for the old switcheroo. He's got himself alongside. In fact, he's got himself in front. Dan Dan has gone in front of Nath, but Nath is fighting back. Dan Dan just ahead as they head towards turn 4. Now then, Nath having a look at the inside, although he's going to be on the outside into turn 5 into the chicane, and Dan Dan manages to hold on to it. This is fantastic stuff from these boys as Nath tries to get that place back. He's led for the whole of the race. And he's having another looker then at turn 6, and he's side by side between Nathan and Dandan. I think Dandan's going to get the power down first to get a better exit. Yeah, Nathan was just compromised a little bit, taking that tighter line. He couldn't quite get the power down early enough, and Dandan manages to keep his nose in front. In fact, we're just going to stay with these boys. Sorry, but we're going to stay with these boys all the way to the end, because this is where the race is. Stubbs is sitting there into turn 9. Oh, this is great stuff. As Dandan just about holding on to P1 as they go through turns 11 and 12 through turn 13. Just about to come up now on the left is very fast, a left-hander down the hill towards turn 14. It is Dandan just ahead of Nath, who is just ahead of Stubbs. Into turn 14, the last really critical turn. It is all about the exit here, and I think all three of them have got a fantastic exit, and it looks like Dandan could possibly take the win here for race 1, and what a brilliant race it was, and Dandan across the line to take the win. Oh no, he's not. I thought that was the final lap. Oh wow, we have got one more lap to go. This is brilliant. Good. Let's have another 5 laps. If this is how it's going to be, let's have another quick look and see what's happening elsewhere. Then Gower is in 4th. Grasshopper is in 5th. Paul is in 6th. He's coming still under a lot of attention from Silly Shot. Silly Shot just will not leave Paul alone, will he? Brilliant stuff from these boys. Chuck in 8th. Just couldn't quite get close enough to the 2 guys in front of him. Mika in 9th. P. White in 10th. Dizzy in 11th. Harry in 12th. I thought I saw somebody with no fuel then. Brian Moncani 13th and Bloomfield in 14th, but back up to the action to determine, well, all 3 of these boys are going to be on the podium, but really the question is, which step are they going to be standing on? At the minute, Dandan is on the big step. He has got a very slight gap, about a car length between himself and Nath, but that is absolutely nothing. It just means, well, one poor exit from a corner and you're caught. But Dandan looking good at the minute as we go through turn 13 for the final time. Then Dan's on the grass. Now then, that's going to give Nath a bit of encouragement as he gets right up the chuff of Dandan into turn 14. Now then, Dandan, he may have a bit of dirty tyres, but he's got a good exit. Nath still in 2nd with Stubbs in 3rd, and it looks like Dandan is going to make it. So this time it is definitely the end of the race. What a brilliant battle between these guys. There's the checkered flag for Dandan. Nathan 2nd, Stubbs in 3rd. Brilliant stuff. Oh, Stubbs has run out of fuel. Gower in 4th. Grasshopper will cross the line in 5th with Paul in 6th. Silly Shot 7th. Chuck is 8th. Mika 9th. P. White will finish in 10th, also with just about no fuel. Dizzy, again, no fuel, 11th. Harry Poppins 12th. Brian Moncani 13th. And Bloomfield bringing up the rear in 14th. What a fantastic start to the racing here in Sardegna. Wow, I'm going to get myself a drink and try and clear this fog out of my throat. I suggest you do the same, because if race 1 is anything to go by, race 2 is going to be an absolute banger. If you do enjoy these races, please hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, if you do me a favour and do that as well. I will be back very shortly for race 2, so stick around and I shall catch you soon.